So I'm a little emotional excited about this. But so I want to walk you through a little bit about how we got to here and how we created SightLife Surgical and some of the business pillars that we're going to be focusing on to ensure that we deliver on what we're after, which is ultimately the elimination of corneal blindness. But in the meantime, we need to make sure that we're serving the surgeons so that you're serving your patients. And in doing that, we're going to be providing a return to our investors so that ultimately we get to that mission. And so what we did in the creation of SightLife Surgical is our board of directors at SightLife went through a very painstaking and thorough process over the last 2 years. That included legal counsel. It included 3 different independent studies, Ernst & Young, Michael Lockman from IQ, and then ultimately a group called the Strategic Value Group, looking at all the different aspects of how you do this and how do you do it right so that you protect the mission and the nonprofit status of SightLife while allowing investors to bring resources to help us accelerate that mission. And so that process culminated recently with the board's final approval and acceptance of the investment from Flying L Partners. And so in doing this, it gave us the opportunity to really resource that vision. Now, Flying L Partners, if you're in ophthalmology and you want to start a company and you want the best people to work with, you're not going to find many people better than Bill Link, people like Andy Corley and Dick Lindstrom to help support you along the way. And not only have they done that, but they've actually brought this $10 million into our Series A round and helped us. And inside of that $10 million are some amazing individuals who have great expertise in the ophthalmology space. And we're really fortunate to have that kind of backing. The strategy of this organization is going to be very focused, to remain very focused on the cornea ecosystem, to accelerate the growth of SightLife Surgical and bring new products and services to surgeons and their patients. And so one of the things that is obvious to us right now is something like injectable endothelial cells. You've heard that presented and talked about, a wonderful technology from Shigeru Kinoshita. Something like that needs to get through the FDA and ultimately available to patients. Those are the kind of things that we're going to focus on. But along the way, we're going to need more ideas about ways that we can accelerate the process of eliminating cornea blindness from you, from the surgeons. As we do this, we're going to broaden our focus beyond just cornea transplantation, and we're going to begin looking at everything related to the cornea. And ultimately, we want you to think of SightLife Surgical as the cornea company. So 3 of our objectives in this process are very clear. And so the first pillar is innovative products and services. And so I know Bill will talk about this a little bit more, but as he's watched this space for the last several decades, I know he's been frustrated about the lack of innovation. And so from our investors, from our staff, from our medical directors, we have a passion for creating innovation, new products, better products for you all in the cornea space. Therapeutics, treatments, different products, different services that help you provide better sight and vision to your patients. And this is going to have to be not just a one-off thing, it's got to be a systemic change. And so this is a dynamic systemic change effort. And innovation and access for the patients is at the core of it. So the pillar number 1 is innovation of products and services. The second pillar, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, is going after that broken payment paradigm that exists in cornea transplantation. And so we need to remove the systemic barriers by fixing these payment paradigms. And one of the great things that really we're excited about having Bill Link and Flying L Partners as our investor is there, again, is no better group of people at understanding payment paradigms and changing them than the people that we have investing in SightLife Surgical, supporting us and walking arm in arm with us in this process. And so, these stories, you and the surgeons in the audience could probably tell these stories yourself, but I think of Matt Oliva, who's one of our medical directors and a great supporter of eliminating blindness around the world. Matt actually has a private practice in Southwest Oregon, and he's really the only cornea surgeon in a huge geographic area. And so patients many times are driving 3 or 4 hours to come and see him. And Matt has gotten increasing pressure from his non-cornea partners to decrease the number of transplants that he does. Matt used to do about 5 transplants a week, and I don't know exactly what he's down to now, but it's less than 5. And he's in this constant battle to keep OR time for his cornea patients. But what happens is those cornea patients don't go away. They go back to the farms where they're from, they go back to the labor that they're trying to do, or they just go back home and sit and wait. And that patient access problem is something that really motivates me to be aggressive about this. And so we're going to retain the kind of resources that can affect change in this area. And again, we're going to need surgeon support. We're going to need society support from organizations like the Cornea Society as we go after this. But SightLife Surgical is going to be the spear point of this effort to really make a difference so that patients who need cornea transplants here in the United States get access when they need them. They don't get put on a waiting list. And again, realize in this situation in the US, we have about a 50% oversupply of corneas here in the US. So this isn't a corneal tissue problem. It's the payment paradigm that's restricting patients from the opportunity to have their vision restored. This isn't a surgeon problem. It's not that we don't have surgeons that aren't passionate about taking care of their patients, but it's again the payment paradigms that are limiting this. And then the third pillar is really focusing on prevention and treatment that spans the globe. And so when we bring a new idea to bear, we want that idea to not only be available for patients here in the US, but we want that idea to be something that can be transferred and implemented in other places across the globe. So while we do have to deliver a return to our investors, and that's critical in this process, we know that our investors are 100% behind us in ultimately delivering on that mission. So if we can get a technology like injectable endothelial cells through the FDA here in the US and accessible to patients here in the US, that ultimately makes that product available for patients around the world. And so as we move into this, we will be looking at those innovations of treatment that actually can be transferred around the world. The area of prevention is something that we're just beginning to think about. And SightLife it really started out providing donor corneas for transplant and being in that very curative part of the cornea blindness process. But ultimately, if we're really serious about eliminating cornea blindness, we have to do significant and successful activities in the area of prevention. You look at a country like India, where there are literally millions and millions of cornea blind patients, and we can actually create innovation that can change that reality for them. We can increase the cornea supply in India through our global programs, which are already showing great promise and success. But ultimately, we also have to stop the incoming corneal blindness from patients that needlessly have injuries or infections. And so those are areas where we're going to look for innovation and how can we produce products or education that actually increases the prevention of cornea blindness.